Walks, a lot of time. Goes a far side. Martin there with it. Can he catch it? Yes, he can. Touchdown, Bell Vernon. Quentin Martin gliding his way to the end zone. Braden Locks and Quentin Martin, same page, same sentence.
Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Sean Meyers.
And welcome into another episode of Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Sean Meyers, Dan Flickinger here to talk about the very best of Westmoreland County's high school football each and every week. And Flick, we got a big show again. We're going to run down all of the scores, all of the top performers from this past week, which is already week 7 of the WPIAL season. We'll have plays of the week. We're going to have a couple of interviews. Tim Bukowski, the first-year head coach of Southmoreland, the Scotties playing some good ball. And we're going to double up with Southmoreland because our player of the week, as voted on by the fans, he's also from Southmoreland. What a story. Ty Keffer, a receiver who had a record-setting performance this past week. We'll also look ahead with the Week 8 preview, but we've got some big stories. We're going to get to some playoff clinchers momentarily. One of those teams was Franklin Regional. They not only clinch a playoff spot, they have clinched the conference title in 5A Big East play. I don't think anyone thought that heading into this season, and they did so in emphatic fashion. 56-21 knocking off Hempfield area. Third straight loss for the Spartans. Franklin Regional has already gotten a tie of the section title, but they would win the head-to-head with Gateway no matter what. So really, for all intents and purposes, the conference is theirs. And really, they did it with unbelievable explosive plays once again.
They really did. And I think they knew what was at stake, right? They knew if they win the game, they clinch at least a share of the conference championship. I guess you say a share because Gateway could tie with Franklin Regional, right? For the other things could happen too, but
yes, but they would win the head-to-head.
Sure, they would, but I guess they would recognize it as Coast Conference champ, which is silly in my opinion. But
right.
But in terms of who would get that number 1 seed, it would be Franklin Regional if they tied with Gateway. But we'll see how everything kind of shakes out. We still have a couple of weeks to go. But bottom line is Franklin Regional knew what was at stake. They knew they could at least clinch a share of the conference title, and they had their best week of practice, according to Roman Sarnick. You know, he said we wanted to come out and be physical. We wanted to come out and get a fast start, something that Franklin hasn't necessarily done a whole lot this year. But they definitely got that. And you mentioned the big plays, and you know who it came. Most of them came from is Aiden Hudock. 5 catches, 174 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He had 4 touchdowns on the night. He has just been getting better and better every week. He's only a junior too, it was pretty scary when you think about the kind of numbers that he's put up. But Sean, I think that Franklin Regional just really understand its identity, and it's just being physical on offense and, you know, not necessarily throwing the ball all over the place, but when Roman does put it in the air, he knows he has Aiden Hudock that can make big splash plays. And then they want to run the football. That's how they beat Gateway. I mean, they played ball control. They ran the football, and Zach Pazuska had a really good night again against Hempfield. And I thought on defense, they were also physical. So they're really gaining a lot of momentum, a lot of confidence, and they just came out and really took care of business against, you know, a Hempfield team that it's like, man, they just can't get that traction back. Obviously, they lose their leader. If you're looking at one kid, you know, when you play quarterback, you usually are the leader of at least the offense, if not the entire team. Jake Phillips certainly is that for Hempfield. You know, when he hasn't been able to play, it's been really hard for them, I think, mentally and physically, to just kind of get back into this after that loss to Gateway. And Hempfield really reeling right now with a big game this week.
Yeah, and so the Spartans still have hopes, but it's going to be a little bit of a long shot, quite frankly, for them. And this is so crazy. Again, we go back to a couple weeks ago, and Hempfield area was in the driver's seat, but now it's Franklin Regional that has already secured, at least, as we said, a share of the section title. One thing to note is I believe Zach Bazuska did leave with injury midway through that game, so we'll have to monitor that. But if you're Coach Getsy, knowing that you've already got that, you can maybe ease guys back into action, rest them over the next couple of weeks with that playoff spot already secured.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. And we can talk maybe more about this during our last segment of the show here tonight. But a non-conference game for Franklin Regional this week, a non-conference game for Penn Trafford this week. How do the coaches attack those non-conference games, knowing that they have a big game? Now, we'll see how much it ends up meaning for Gateway, but certainly for Penn Trafford, a huge game with Franklin Regional the following week. So that'll be interesting to see how they attack them. And I also have to go back real quick to the Hempfield-Franklin game. I talk about Jake Phillips being out and how much that hurts Hempfield. You got to tip your cap to a guy like Geno Caesar, because the offense is revolving around him right now. And he ran for 151 yards in the game. So he's doing all that he can. I'm sure all the guys are doing all that they can. But right now it's just it's a confidence thing, and they just seem to be reeling. But again, a big one with Plum on Friday.
Absolutely. Well, we had another all Westmoreland County battle, and it was pretty lopsided, much like Franklin Regional against Hempfield. Greensburg Central Catholic won pretty easily against Jeanette, but I don't think that's the big story, because we kind of expected GCC talent-wise was superior. Jeanette's still young. It's still a long way to go from where they used to be to get back to that level, and I think this could be maybe GCC's year. 44-0, but it was sort of how it unfolded, because it was 30-0 at the half. GCC had the game locked up, and yet the fourth quarter, and particularly late in the fourth quarter, the Centurions threw a long touchdown pass to, by the way, Jaden Kennedy, former Jeanette Jayhawk, and it did not sit well with many of the Jayhawks, whether it be players or coaches. And this is, a very juicy topic, because we've already talked about it. There's a lot of former Jeanette players now playing for GCC. This is a good rivalry, but did it maybe cross the line at all? Well, before you answer that question, let's go back and listen to the call there, and everyone can judge for themselves.
Full complement of starters still out there for GCC, and Turner is throwing the football, a go route to Jaden Kennedy. I'm not even going to say anything about that one. I'll just keep my mouth shut. Another score for GCC with 1:30 to go, as I'm sure Jayhawk fans, Jayhawk coaches are going to remember that one for years to come.
77 yards, Turner to Kennedy for the Centurion score.
So those were the announcers that we had there, Brent Wiggum and Anthony D'Annunzio, who do cover Jeanette all season, so we will know that, but they understand Greensburg Central Catholic very well as well. And so they were upset about it. They took a little offense to it. I could see why Jeanette people would be upset about it, and even maybe some neutral people, because typically you'll see a scenario where the coach, if they're in command, they won't be throwing a lot of passes and they'll use a lot of backups. That was not the case in either regard for Greensburg Central Catholic there.
No, I agree with Brent and Anthony 100%. And I know they covered Jeanette all year, but if you listen to that game, like I went back and listened to some of it, and then the pregame, and they were getting excited for the GCC players that were making plays, and talking a lot during the pregame show about not just Jeanette's side, but GCC side, the rivalry, and they're just excited to kind of be there, even though they knew, that it would certainly be a really tall task for Jeanette. It's a bad look, Sean. I don't understand, when you're up 37-0 with just over a minute to go, why you need to feel the need to throw the ball deep down the field. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I'll say what Marco Thomas, Greensburg Central Catholic coach, said after the game, and this is in Bill Beckner's article. He said, quote, "Jeanette tried to milk the ball, and we wanted to throw a pass. They sat on the clock. We only called one timeout tonight." You had all game to call a pass. I don't understand why it was necessary to call a pass there. And the other part about that quote that really has me scratching my head is the fact that he was accusing Jeanette of milking the ball. Well, Jeanette was without 3 starters going in. They lost their starting quarterback in the second quarter, so they were down 4 starters. And as most people know, Jeanette's roster is already depleted because of kids leaving last year, including the ones that went to Greensburg Central Catholic. So going into that game as a head coach, what is Tom Pallone supposed to do? He's going to go in and play ball control, and that's what he did. Noah Sanders had a good game. He carried the ball over 30 times. They wanted to stay competitive in the game, and the way that they felt the best way to do it, and I agree, is to try to play ball control, run the football, kind of take the air out of the ball. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. So that's what they did. And then Marco says after the game that they're milking the clock. Well, again, what else did you want him to do in terms of an offensive strategy? I don't get that. But the bottom line is, even if that was the case, why did you feel like you had to throw the ball deep down the field with just over a minute left with your starters in? I mean, if they ran the ball and they break a touchdown with their starters in, not that big. I mean, you're asking why are the starters still in, but okay. But to throw a pass like that was sending a message, and there was some things said after the game on the field, in the locker room and things like that. It didn't really escalate out of control, but there were some things said. And I guess as fans, this makes it really, really interesting for the future now that something like this happened in the first year for Tom Pallone, the second year for Marco, going at it against one another. This will certainly spice things up a bit for the future. But yeah, I don't know. It really is a bad look, and I just don't understand throwing the football up 37-0. I honestly think that it was almost a case of where, and I'm not putting words in his mouth, but perhaps, Coach Thomas thought we're better than 37 points better than Jeanette. So, we want to hang another touchdown on which is, I just don't understand it. I thought maybe after I heard about it that, I don't know, maybe there were some things going on the field. They were not happy with how Jeanette was doing A, B, or C, other than milking the ball, like maybe, taking shots or something. But he didn't say that after the game. He said they were milking the ball. That's why they threw a pass. So it's just kind of strange. But again, certainly will make for a good story here going forward when these teams play again next year and the year after, and heck, even in basketball season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so there's a number of things in play here, and I think you did a good job covering a lot of it. One, they were up 37, which means the mercy rule was in effect. So typically, if you're trying to say we need to impress the committee or show our dominance, once you get it to the mercy rule, you've done your job in that regard. When a team wins by 35 or more, or they're up by 35 or more and then go on to win by whatever margin, it's already well known that the mercy rule is in effect. So that changes, how many points you're going to score, things of that nature. So that wasn't an issue. One of the other things is I always hate the idea that if you bring reserves in and you're up by big, that you don't want the kids who are out there to still play hard and play well. You do, Absolutely. But you can do that without having deep passes down the field. So you never tell a kid, don't try to make a play, don't try to score. But as a head coach or an offensive or defensive coordinator, your job to some degree is to make sure you call plays that aren't rubbing it in the opponent's face. I don't think you tell your kids, don't go play your hardest, but you more so just try to prevent those things from happening by not calling a deep pass to your opponent.
Yeah, and I don't know any other way of saying, I mean, honestly, like I don't want to be able to have to say that they were rubbing it in Jeanette's face, but what other way could you say it? You're already up 37-0 and you throw a deep pass. Like I just,
right.
It's very strange. Again, I don't know if there's more going on behind the scenes. There probably is, but on the surface, from our observing, perch, if you will, it wasn't good.
Yeah, and you see lopsided scores all the time, and we're going to get to some of them, but I think it's how you get there. So it's not the 44-0. It's not even that GCC scored 2 touchdowns in the second half. It's the fact that how they went about scoring
and again, Sean. Sorry to interrupt you. I think we talked about this before we began the show. Like, Jeanette did put a lot of beatings on Greensburg Central Catholic. Sure. But I don't recall Jeanette throwing a long pass with that's what you do when you're playing Madden, right? We want to keep running up the store. We're playing video games. Like, that's what you do. But you don't do it in an actual game like that. And I don't recall Jeanette ever doing that, number one. And number two, there aren't a lot of the same pieces on each team right. in terms of players or coaches that have been around for a long time. It's not like we have, Roy Hall versus Muzzy Colosimo anymore and that kind of deal. So I don't know. But I'll tell you what, this certainly started, anything that happens from now or from, this day forward, you can think back to what happened in the final play of the time they played in 2022 when GCC threw the ball deep. Because you can always reference back to that, depending on what happens, how the games play out.
And it's been a while since we've had really, really good competitive games between these schools because Jeanette dominated for almost a decade straight. And then GCC the last 2 years has dominated. So I think you have to go back to maybe like 2014, somewhere in that ballpark where they played really competitive football. But I do want to say one thing, Flick. You said they won't play again until next year in football. Technically, there's a decent chance that both teams will be in the playoffs. GCC's already in. Jeanette could get in the playoffs, and you never know. Wouldn't that be an interesting story? Probably the committee wouldn't match them up in the first round, but maybe both teams win a game and you go from there. So that would be an awesome storyline if that happens in about 3 weeks' time or so. Talking about the teams who are in the playoffs, so let's go over the 4 teams that have clinched. And I'll preface this by saying there's some that you can pretty much pencil in, but it's not official. You and I don't like to say this team's in unless it's 100% official. The 4 teams that are officially in: Franklin Regional, Bell Vernon area, which had another lopsided victory this past week, 55-7 against Mount Pleasant. Ligonier Valley, which is actually coming off of a loss, but that win against Burrell a couple weeks ago and some other things went their favor. And Greensburg Central Catholic, which defeated Jeanette in lopsided fashion. Those 4 teams are all in. There's a good chance Southmoreland and Greater Latrobe, you can say they're at about 99% chance right now. And then there's other teams that it's very much a gray area. Teams like Penn Trafford, which it's going to depend on some other things. They have to take care of their own business, get some help along the way. I think the same could be said for Hempfield area, although the Spartans need a little bit more help. So we're starting to get a little bit of a clearer picture for the playoffs. And yet there's only 2 weeks left. We only know for sure that 4 teams are in and that a few more teams would be in with the win this week. So I think that makes for exciting football down the stretch.
Yeah, well, it certainly makes things interesting coming down the stretch here. You look at Penn Trafford at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of every year, you think PT is going to be able to control their own destiny late in the year. They do to a certain extent, but if Hempfield happens to win out, if they beat Plum this week and then beat Norwin, which is possible, I know they're not playing with a lot of confidence right now, then it looks like, even if Penn Trafford wins their final game against Franklin Regional, the PT may be the odd team out there. So they obviously need a little bit of help. I know Latrobe has a 99.9% chance of making the playoffs. They have that, but they haven't 100% clinched it yet. But even if they lose to McKeesport this week, it would basically the sky would be, I don't know, orange or something like that. You know what I mean? For them not to get.
I'm checking right now. It does not look orange currently.
Okay, so
well, that's good news for the Wildcats.
They'll probably get in then. Yeah, they would need basically Connellsville to beat Thomas Jefferson and some other things to happen. And
Laurel Highlands as well. Yeah,
Laurel Highlands. Yeah, that's just not going to happen. So Latrobe sitting in a really good seat right now, regardless of what happens to McKeesport. So again, there's some teams on the bubble, and the bottom line is, I know this is coach speak, but they have to just concentrate on taking care of their own business and hope other things will take care of themselves. But if they're scoreboard watching, bad things are going to happen. But as I said at the beginning of the show, it is interesting that, this late in the season, you have 2 non-conference games. I mean, I guess it is what it is, but I'm talking about Franklin Regional playing non-conference and Penn Trafford playing non-conference as well. So we'll see what happens. This, I guess, is the best time for football with teams trying to angle their way into the playoffs.
Yeah, and it gets very confusing because I wrote an article for the Latrobe Bulletin saying Wildcats in with the win, and then the weird scenario of Connellsville winning out and beating 2 of the top 3 teams in the conference in a 4-way tie for second place. So I remember, I think it was 2019, Burrell was celebrating their playoff appearance. Yeah. And they ended up not making it. I was just about to mention Burrell, Sean, because they're on the bubble right now at 2-3. Apollo Ridge 2-3. Amani Christian is 2-3. Now Burrell plays Derry this week, which should be a win, but then they have to play Apollo Ridge the following week. But Apollo Ridge plays Sarah Catholic this week, so we'll see. They could. What if Apollo Ridge pulls off a big upset? So that certainly makes the Allegheny Conference interesting too. Yeah, and that's why coaches, whether it's accurate all the time or not, they just say we're worried about what we can control. That's because you can go crazy thinking of all the different scenarios. But it does make for interesting football because just about every game that we're going to talk about this upcoming week will have some sort of implications, even if it's not directly the teams involved. it will influence in some way, shape, or form the postseason picture. Well, that was a very lengthy opening segment, but we've got plenty more to get to. We're going to run down all of the scores from week 7. We'll have the top performers, plays of the week, a couple of Scotties for our interviews, head coach Tim Bukowski and Ty Keffer, their star receiver. And we will look ahead to the week 8 preview. That's as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Now is the time to save at Sandell Subaru in Greensburg. We've got inventory on the lot and more on the way. Forester, Outback, Ascent, Legacy, and more. Get a great deal on a new 2022 Subaru. Check out SandellSubaru.com today. Looking to turn your current vehicle into cash? Sandell pays top dollar. Get your best deal at Sandell Subaru, Route 30 Greensburg, SandellSubaru.com. We would love to meet you.
Hi, Westmoreland sports fans. This is Al Gallardo, financial advisor with Lincoln Investment and longtime Westmoreland County resident. Whether it's a traditional or Roth IRA, 403B or 457 plan, mutual funds, ETFs, stocks, or bonds, I can help you navigate the markets and assist you in achieving all of your goals. Call me at 724-309-8337 or email me at agallardo@lincolninvestment.com and we'll get started together. Good luck to all of the area's athletes and coaches this season.
And we roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Sean and Dan. Well, Flick, we've got a lot to get to tonight, so we're going to kind of speed things up, run down all the scores and top performers from week 7 of the WPIAL football season. We've got some good interviews coming up later. Tim Bukowski and Ty Keffer, the plays of the week, and, of course, a look ahead with the week 8 preview. But let's wrap up
you
week 7.
Talk like this, Sean? Anytime I talk, and you talk like this?
You want me to speak really fast like that? Is that what you're saying?
Would you like me to do that? I'm asking you. You said we need to speed it up a little bit. So if you need me to do that, I can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. I can't do that. I'll get out of breath. All right, so let's run down some of the scores. We already touched on a number of these. Franklin Regional 56-21 over Hempfield area. You can go back and watch that one and see a very excited Jonathan Whaley. Penn Trafford had to work for this one, but they did beat Plum 35-21. The Mustangs with a game showing, but the Warriors got the much-needed win, even though they had a hard time getting on the board. Once they did, they were able to kind of take control late in the second into the third quarter of that one. It was control from the get-go for Bell Vernon area. How about this? 55-7, the Leopards knock off Mount Pleasant. You can go back and watch that one. I did not expect to be that lopsided. We knew Bell Vernon's a really good team, but they took it to the next level, and I think that's maybe the best game that we've seen Quentin Martin play in his Leopards career.
I think so. I mean, he put up some major numbers in that game. He had an interception as well for a score. So, I mean, we know what he can do. But again, as you mentioned, it's probably his biggest game as a Bell Vernon Leopard now as a junior. I was pretty surprised, Sean. I didn't, like you said, I didn't think, I thought Bell Vernon would win. I know that they were playing at home where they're tough to beat. And obviously they're probably the better team, but I thought that the game would be much closer than 55-7. So Mount Pleasant, again, they're on track to make a postseason appearance here, but they need to beat a South Allegheny team that's winless. They should probably do that, but this game, really sent them reeling a little bit.
Yeah, and Robbie Labuda, who's been so good, he just had nothing going, and you credit the great defense for the Leopards. And for those saying, well, maybe did they tack on some late points to kind of make it more lopsided? No, that was the score at the half. Yeah. There was no scoring in the second half. So it was 55-7 in the first half. So the Leopards, they are absolutely rolling right now as they improve to 4-2. Amani Christian defeats Derry area. That won 44-17 in favor of the Saints. We already talked plenty about this one. Greensburg Central Catholic 44, Jeanette nothing. Centurions now improved to 6-2. Jeanette 2-6, although the Jayhawks still in a good spot to make the postseason. And in a non-conference game, 6A versus 5A, North Allegheny 38, Norwin 13. The Knights, they played some good defense. They've hung in there on that end. They haven't got a lot of offense, but ultimately they could not battle the entire way against a really, really good North Allegheny team that probably is the favorite in 6A. Other games around Westmoreland County: Greater Latrobe 43, Connellsville 13. Not technically a playoff clincher, but for all intents and purposes, we got to tip our cap to Robbie Robbie Fulton, the other Robbie who's had a great season running the football. He becomes, we believe, I'm always hesitant to say anything definitively now, we believe the all-time single-season rushing leader in Greater Latrobe history, and did it in his first season there. What an addition he has been. Great story for young Mr. Fulton.
Well, hey, if Mike Paremka says it's true, it's true. We have to roll with it. He actually emailed me, Sean, before the game and said, hey, Robbie's 170 yards away from clinching. And I'm thinking, okay, we'll worry about that next week. Nope. He had 170 apparently on the dot against Connellsville. And I don't want you to get on your soapbox again about the stats, but it was interesting because, Mike said that he broke the record, and then we got the stats and it said that he had 154 yards. And we're like, okay, but you said it was 170. And then he said there was a play that was incorrectly statted, that it was credited with a pass and not a run. So they needed to go back in, and that gave him 170 apparently. So all that stuff going on. But either way, congratulations. I mean, what a great season that he has put together in his first and only year at Latrobe.
Well, hopefully he doesn't have a negative yardage game this upcoming week.
That's true. We don't want him to do that.
Although technically then he could break the record twice.
Yeah, so, that's true. That's like a trick question.
Nonetheless,
the same record twice.
Greater Latrobe wins that one going away against Connellsville. It was Highlands dominating Kiski area as the Golden Rams now 8-0. They win 56-7. The Cavaliers are winless on the season. Southmoreland defeats Greensburg Salem. We're going to hear all about this one. The Scotties double up the Golden Lions 42-21. We'll talk to Tim Bukowski and Ty Keffer a little bit later about that contest. Shadyside Academy in a Saturday afternoon contest defeats Valley 30-0. Sarah Catholic just barely gets past Ligonier Valley 27-18. So the Eagles now 7-1, the Rams 5-3, and yet Sarah Catholic has played a couple of pretty close scoring games the last couple of weeks. That's not the same for Steel Valley. The Ironmen dominate Burrell 48-0. They remain perfect at 7-0. The Buccaneers suffer their second consecutive loss. Apollo Ridge doubles up York 26-13. Cougars for the second week in a row at least hung in there the entire way. Monessen puts a 70 spot on the board, defeating Jefferson Morgan 70-30. The teams combined for 100 points in that one. If you're a fan of offense, that was the game for you. And some college scores. It's another loss for Seton Hill, and yet I think a really good showing as the Griffins fall 21-14 against Cal U. The Vulcans now 4-3, the Griffins 0-7. You can go back and watch that one. Best performance by far for Seton Hill this season, Dan.
100%. And that's because the offense actually put some drives together in the second half. Again, we've talked about it many times. Their defense is good enough to not be 0-7, no doubt about it. But their offense has been that bad. And but what a way to lose for Seton Hill. They're down 21-0. They go to a former All-Star quarterback in Tyler Bradley. He's their third string quarterback. Their other two quarterbacks have not been good all year. But Eddie Scott got hurt. Here comes Tyler Bradley in the game, and he's able to lead the team down on 2 drives for touchdowns. So they get their second touchdown mid to late in the fourth quarter. Cal gets the ball back, and Seton Hill's defense holds them to a 3-and-out. Offense jumping. I mean, the sideline's going nuts. They have all this momentum. You almost feel like you just want to see what this next drive is going to look like. Are they going to be able to score again and tie the game? And then on fourth down, roughing the punter on Seton Hill, they get a first down. Cal does, and then they pick up another first down and wind out the clock. So heartbreaking loss for Seton Hill, but it'll be interesting to see if Tyler Bradley starts against IUP this week.
Yeah. Other Westmoreland County College team gets a win. It was St. Vincent 41, Geneva 25. So the Bearcats now sitting at 2-4. Let's take a look at the top performers from around the WPIAL and then specific to Westmoreland County from week 7, the top passers, rushers, and receivers. Top passer across the entire district, it is Caden Olson, a player we've heard about for many, many years. Saw him firsthand a few years ago. The Armstrong Riverhawk senior goes 19 of 25, 349 yards. He is continuing to rewrite the record books.
The reigning Willie Thrower Award winner, Sean.
Yeah, he's an outstanding player and a future D1 quarterback. The top Westmoreland County passer was Caden Kiefer of Southmoreland, 12 of 23 for 231 yards. Roman Sarnik, 7 of 12 for Franklin Regional, 199 yards through the air in their victory. John Wetzel, a perfect 7 of 7 for Greater Latrobe as he amasses 160 yards. Conlon Green of Penn Trafford, 6 of 10 for 122. And Raiden Kuroda of the York Cougars, 10 of 18 for 122 yards as well. The top rusher across the WPIAL this past week, it was Braylon Lovelace, the future Pitt Panther, expected to play linebacker for Pitt, but he's a heck of a running back for the Leechburg Blue Devils as he puts up 279 yards on the ground. Top player in Westmoreland County, it was Tyvon Kershaw of Monessen. He is a freshman who rushes for 234 yards. I believe that's the second time in as many weeks he has surpassed 200 yards on the ground. Owen DeMary of Penn Trafford has a breakout performance, 190 yards for him in the Warriors' victory. We talked about Robbie Fulton. He puts up 170 for Greater Latrobe. Sarnik, who is already on here as the passer, he gets 166 yards rushing for Franklin Regional. And Gino Caesar in the losing effort for Hempfield area puts 151 yards up on the ground. The top receiver from this past week, Bishop Canavan, Xavier Nelson, 5 catches for 211 yards, but a couple of Westmoreland County receivers had monster performances of their own. Aiden Hudock, 5 catches, 174 yards for Franklin Regional, and we're going to hear from him in just a bit. Ty Keffer of Southmoreland, 9 catches, 160 yards, and most impressively, 6 touchdowns.
6 touchdowns. That's
unbelievable. Absolutely incredible performance. That'll do it for the Week 7 scores and top performers. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, you got to stick around because it is time for Plays of the Week. That and plenty more to come as we continue right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network's Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
D'Annunzio's Italian Restaurants is open 7 days a week at all 3 of our locations, Jeanette, Monroeville, and Latrobe. We invite you to join us for our specials. Monday, the special is spaghetti. Tuesday, it's raviolis. Wednesday, it's lasagna. And Thursday, it's chicken parmesan or chicken romano. Be sure to try our drink specials and our fabulous desserts. And remember, we also have takeout available at all 3 locations.
East Suburban Sports Medicine, Western Pennsylvania's #1 physical therapy practice, is now in Greensburg, voted by Trib Live readers as the best of the best. Our new Greensburg clinic provides orthopedic, concussion, lymphedema, and pelvic health therapy. Conveniently located at 133 Donahoe Road, right next to Best Buy. East Suburban Sports Medicine, the best care anywhere, hands down. Call 412-856-8060 and schedule an appointment today.
We roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean Meyers, Dan Flickinger. We got a couple of interviews upcoming momentarily. Tim Bukowski, the head coach, and the star receiver Ty Keffer, both of Southmoreland, and a look ahead at the Week 8 preview. But Flick, it is now time. Do we have a drum roll? I knew you would deliver.
Please
it is time for Plays of the Week.
That was terrible.
Well,
my end, not your end. You did fine.
Listen, these players did more than fine. That's all that really matters.
That's
no one's
right,
here to
buddy.
watch
Let's
us.
Go. Let's do
They're
it.
here to watch the plays of the week as we begin with Penn Trafford and the Warriors. They squandered their first 2 possessions against Plum, but Owen DeMary made sure that the third time was the charm as he took a handoff and found pay dirt to pull his team even late in the opening quarter. Myself and Roger Downs have the call. Down to the 14. DeMary. And he gets into the end zone. Will they call it? Yes, it is a touchdown for DeMary, a 14-yard surge.
Once again, offensive line doing a nice job. Penn Trafford finally on the third offensive series here in quarter number 1. 14 seconds remaining. They finally hit pay dirt.
Second touchdown of the season for DeMary, and he was able to stay in. And the official near the end zone conferred with the official down that sideline to make sure that he stayed in. And once they got confirmation on that, it's a touchdown.
So, Penn Trafford fans, how do you like Owen DeMary? When we were at training camp, Frank Wall, who's the equipment manager, great guy. He's the first guy you go talk to during practice because he'll give you all the information. And he was saying, we lost Cade. It's going to be a little bit tough to see who's going to step up, but we have this Owen DeMary kid. He's showing a lot, and he's finally getting his opportunity as a senior. He's Ian's brother and all this, and we didn't see him much because he was injured. And all of a sudden, Sean, this kid's a difference maker. Tasso's been running the ball fine for Penn Trafford, but he has a little wiggle to him. He's able to run, through people, break tackles, and hopefully he can stay healthy because I think, if Penn Trafford can get into the playoffs, I think they can beat anybody. Obviously they can lose to anybody too, but with having this kid healthy, if Owen can stay healthy, that gives them another weapon where they've had some injuries.
Yeah, you think back to the games they lost, maybe he would have been a difference in one of those games. We'll never know, but the good news for PT, they have him now, and he has certainly made an impact. Well, speaking of impact, we'll continue with Bell Vernon, and their impact player was Quentin Martin. He's been a highly regarded prospect since his freshman days, but he had perhaps his most prolific game on Friday, scoring 5 times, including this spectacular catch on a long pass from Braden Locks as the Leopards dominated the Mount Pleasant area Vikings. Jack Ridenauer and John Bainbridge captioned the picture.
And a lot of times it's an offensive lineman holding, and that's the only time his name gets mentioned.
Locks, a lot of time. Goes a far side. Martin there with it. Can he catch it? Yes, he can. Touchdown, Bell Vernon.
25, Quentin Martin.
Quentin Martin gliding his way to the end zone. Braden Locks and Quentin Martin, same page, same sentence. And they put in another score for Bell Vernon. They go up 41-7.
Couldn't have dropped that pass in there any better. Ball was probably from this hash, probably in the air close to 50 yards. It's a heck of a throw.
Sean, you want to talk about the catch? I want to talk about the throw, too, because they were equally as sweet on that play. You had Locks stepping back and throwing one right over the shoulder of Quentin Martin, and with the talent he has, he's going to make the catch. That's a harder catch than it looked like, too, but that throw dropped right in the bucket over his shoulder. That was something else right there, huh?
Yeah, my first instinct when I was going back and trying to find a play that stood out was Bell Vernon and Martin had a pick 6, and that's usually I lean towards something like that. But I watched it. It was a great return by Quentin Martin for the interception score. But I saw that pass, and I was like, that's spectacular right there. And you do not typically see that at the high school level. And Bell Vernon isn't a team that throws it a ton, so that's just an incredible performance. And if they get the passing game going like that, there's no team that's going to be able to stop them come the postseason. We continue plays of the week with Franklin Regional and the Panthers. They made a statement in the first quarter against Hempfield, outscoring the Spartans 28-0. Perhaps the most spectacular touchdown came from the two likeliest candidates as Roman Sarnik, the quarterback, extended the play and then found his favorite target, Aiden Hudock, behind the defense for a long score, as detailed by the one and only Jonathan Whaley.
Sarnik drops back. He is looking to throw. Pump fakes. Now rolls to the near side. Sarnik looking. Fires. He's got Hudock in the end zone. Touchdown! 34-yard touchdown pass. Sarnik to Hudock. And the Panthers score again. Great balls of fire. Watch this one. Mr. Electricity, a.k.a. Aiden Hudock. Good protection. Good pump fake by Sarnik. Puts his hand on the back of one of his linemen to get leverage. Rolls to the near side. Knows number 16 behind the defense. Just get it to him. And he does, and Hudock does the rest. Franklin Regional now leads 27-0.
Well, Sean, Mike Lang might not be on the radio anymore, unfortunately, Penguins fans. But Jonathan Whaley pulling out the great balls of fire right there.
Well, it was a great ball and a great catch as well, man.
I wonder if that's what he was going to say. You know what I mean? You know how they're like, great balls of fire. That's a nice pump fake too, by the way.
Yeah, that's an electric, as Jonathan would say. That's an electric combination. And
woogie.
Yeah. It's been real fun watching those guys. I know Hudok's got another year, so he's going to continue to torture defenses for a long, long time. But just spectacular plays by Franklin Regional all throughout that contest. We continue. Well, we talked a lot about Greensburg Central Catholic's win, so we'll talk a little bit more about it with plays of the week. As Jeanette was driving late in the second quarter, the Jayhawks were facing a big deficit. They tried to get some points heading into the locker room. Instead, it went the other way, and it was, guess who? Former Jayhawk Jaden Kennedy, who intercepted the pass and then took it for a pick six on the final play of the half, giving GCC a 30-0 lead. It was Brent Wiggum and Anthony D'Annunzio on the call.
Brown empty set backfield. Back to pass. Plenty of time. Now starts to feel some pressure. Going to throw it up near side. Has Noah Sanders there. And a defender for GCC by the name of Jalen Kennedy comes up the near sideline, makes a move, cuts it back inside, and he is going to take it all the way to the house as the worst possible thing could have happened there. Time running out. Kamani Brown just throws it up. Jalen Crosby makes the INT, takes it all the way to the house, and with the PAT forthcoming, it is now 29-0 Jeanette, trailing Greensburg Central Catholic.
Jaden caught that football right around the 5-yard line and took off on the sidelines directly in front of us into the end zone. 6 points for the Centurions. So Jaden Kennedy did a great job to jump up and catch that football, and even more impressive job on the return for the score.
You know, Sean, I remember watching Jaden Kennedy when he was just a sophomore, playing for Jeanette, winning a Whitfield title, and helping them, get to a state championship. He wasn't the man, but you could tell, man, he was built. He was going to be really, really good as he continued to develop. And, GCC with just so many weapons, so many different guys touch the football. He made a great play on the defensive side right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you would think it was probably a little bit sweeter for him going against Jeanette. I don't know if there's bad blood with him or not, but still, I think when you go against your former team, whether you went out on good terms or bad terms, you always have a little bit more juice for a game like that. So I'm sure that was a special moment for Jaden Kennedy. Well, we conclude plays of the week with the college version. It is Seton Hill, and although the Griffins remained winless, they played their best game of the season, and it was quarterback Tyler Bradley who sparked the fourth quarter rally. His precise pass to Mark Bales pulled Seton Hill within a score, with myself and TJ DeStefano providing the commentary. Ball to the 21. Bradley's going to take a shot, and it is caught by Bales for a 21-yard touchdown. Bradley has given them the spark they've needed.
He has, since he's entered the game, and what a game Bales has had. Another nice throw by Bradley, and Bales and the Griffins with an extra point pending, down hopefully only by 7 here.
There he is. We just talked about it. Tyler Bradley coming into the game and making his presence felt. And the biggest knock on Tyler was always, physically he had the height, but he didn't have that arm strength maybe that was needed to play quarterback at the D2 level. But Coach Dan Day always said he was probably their smartest quarterback. It was like having another coach on the sideline, so he knows where to put the football. And, I guess they were kind of forced into giving him a chance, but I'm glad they did because obviously the offense never looked any better than it did against Cal U.
Yeah, and there's always the question of what if. What if he got that opportunity earlier in some games where they had every chance to win but couldn't get it done? But again, comes in a loss, and yet I think to this point that still is the bright spot of the season for Seton Hill. We'll see if they can carry it any further because it's not going to get a heck of a lot easier for the Griffins. That'll do it for Plays of the Week. We'll take a break. When we come back, I will sit down with the first-year head coach for the Southmoreland Scotties, Tim Bukowski, coming off of a big win against Greensburg-Salem. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what's next as well with Bell Vernon on the horizon. That's as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
That's the power of Bowser. Yeah.
Coach, building a championship team, I know for you, it's all about the details. The same goes with the Bowsers.
No doubt about it. I mean, it's the tiny little details every single day, not forgetting about it the next day and maybe doing it the following day. I mean, I think details are everything.
As Coach says, get your eyes right on the power of Bowser.
The Bowser family is proud to have Coach Narduzzi as part of our team.
We know speaking with your teen or your young adult about drugs and alcohol can be challenging, but is necessary. Remember to have a conversation, not a confrontation. Establish good communications, break through barriers, and be firm but loving. Here are some helpful tips. Choose a good place and time to chat. Talk with openness. Actively listen. Offer empathy and support. For more information, visit us online at wedacinc.org. Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission. Prevention is key.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean Myers now joined by the first-year head coach of the Southmoreland Scotties, Tim Bukowski. His team coming off of a 42-21 victory at home against Greensburg-Salem. Now 4-4 on the season. First off, Tim, I know you were very excited to take over head coach at Southmoreland this offseason, and so far the season's gone pretty well. How have you evaluated your team's performance?
Well, I think, the key is, we've gotten better each week. I think that the familiarity with the players and, the line working cohesively is all starting to come together. We started out 0-2, and, it seems like since then, the togetherness has been there and the trust in each other. So, yeah, we're excited, that things are heading in the right direction.
I mentioned this is your first season as the head coach, but you had been with the program as the offensive coordinator for several years prior. What was that transition like? I know it was a very difficult time due to obviously the very tragic circumstances, but how was transition from offensive coordinator to head coach gone for you, and how's it gone for the team?
Well, obviously, with Ron, that whole situation, somebody had to pick up the ball and run with it. So, I was going to be his right-hand man. So it just made perfect sense. I'm glad that the school felt the same way, but the transition's been relatively smooth. Dave let me have, control of the offense for the last 4 years. So it's not like I wasn't in the huddle every play, calling all the plays, and, a little bit from the administrative side and some other little things you deal with outside of football. But the football part of it, I've been around a lot of good head coaches, and I think you pick up things from each of them that you want to implement. So, I'm trying to do that. And, Dave did a good job, resurrecting the program, so to speak. We were down and out, and we just kind of kept a lot of those traditions. And a lot of it's, the same as it's been. It's been working. So we're doing okay.
You're obviously an offensive-minded coach, and the offense has been pretty good this season. Now, you had a couple of hiccups, but got back with some pretty high-powered attack last week, getting 42 points. What has really stood out about the offensive performance?
Well, the couple hiccups were tough. We were, the Deer Lakes game, we were in the red zone 6 times and came away with 0. So it's rare for us to get shut out. It's humbling. I will say McGuffey, they broke our kicker's leg the first game. So it kind of, took us out of a kicking game. We tried everybody, and it just wasn't going good. So, a game like Deer Lakes, we probably could have kicked 5 or 6 field goals and possibly, won the game, but we just, we didn't have that kicker available. So offensively right now, I think, for a first-year starter, Caden Kiefer has really stepped up and produced. He was the big question mark coming into the season, but he's been in the system for a couple of years. I knew he had a strong arm, and he's doing a real good job just leading the offense, getting the team in and out of the huddle, making good reads. And, obviously he and Ty Keffer, have developed this, great pass connection that's really, they lead the WPIAL with 58 receptions. And again last week with the 6 touchdowns. It was just a amazing performance from both of them and the offensive line because they gave him a lot of time to throw the ball.
It is certainly a nightmare for public address announcers and broadcasters, Kiefer and Keffer, but those two guys, they've been getting their name called a lot. And with Ty Keffer, it's an incredible story. I know it's been written a few times. We talked about it even before the season began because I knew you realized he was a pretty special talent. But the fact that he had not played football, came back this year, and he's been able to do what he's done, what does that say about him? And do you think he could potentially have a future in football if he looks that direction?
Yeah, I mean, it's really been an amazing story. He's very competitive. Everything he does, he wants to win. And it shows out on the field. Even at practice, every ball that's in the air, he expects to get it. And, he has good size, obviously. And his hands are amazing. If he drops a ball, it really turns your head because he catches everything. And if the whistle blows and quarterback's kind of throwing it away, he still catches it with ease. So, with his size and his basketball skills, his jumping ability, he just makes plays. He's been amazing. He's probably going to set every school record this year. He's really close already to the reception mark, and he's at 855 yards. So he'll more than likely go over 1,000. But, to do what he's done for not playing this many years, he's far exceeded my expectations. I knew he was a good athlete. But to be a complete receiver the way he is after one season, just a tribute to him and his work ethic and his athleticism.
If he's this good at football as a second sport, then I definitely need to see him on the basketball hardwood this year. So let's talk specifically about the victory against Greensburg-Salem. He hauls in 6 touchdown passes. There's no doubt every opponent now knows he's your go-to guy. Against the Golden Lions, I'm sure that they tried to scheme to take him out of it. How has this still continued to succeed?
Well, every week we kind of prepare for that, double team or, shading a safety over towards Ty. And, we have situations where we try to move him around a little bit, stack him behind another receiver. And then after that stack, motion him across. We didn't do a lot of that this week. The way they played it, even though we would go trips to one side, they still had the safety shading Ty. But we were able to throw it into windows. And he kind of, beat him on a couple stop and go routes. So the corner bit on it. And, our quarterback, Kiefer, knew how to, drill it in there before the safety could get over top. And then he made one catch in the end zone that was just, the kind of things that the kids say he got mossed. I mean, he just went up over a guy and just pulled it over top, and it's a spectacular catch. And you mentioned earlier football and basketball. I think Ty's going to have a tough decision to make next year because basketball has been his sport, but I think he's going to get some pretty good football offers once we get his film out and these colleges around here start to take a look at it.
Well, obviously, when a quarterback and receiver connect for 6 touchdowns, they get all the headlines. But in a pretty convincing win against Greensburg-Salem, I'm sure other guys really stood out. Who were some of those players who maybe didn't get the headlines but were big contributors?
Sure. We always, give the offensive line credit. He had time to throw the football. There have been times this year where we may not have run the ball as well as we've liked, but he's had pretty good pass protection all the time. Trey Wetzel, our running back, is a tough, hard-nosed football player. He's probably one of the best blocking backs I've ever coached. He has his head on a swivel. No matter what protection we have called, he's always seems to pick up that one guy that might leak. And, he did a great job for us as well. And, credit to him. And, Austin Moe's another guy that, he comes in at running back and he's just tough. They're tough guys and not afraid to step up and pass block. They know, when they get their chance to run the ball, they run as hard as they can. But, a lot of backs won't do the dirty work, and both of those guys will.
So I know that 2019 was such a special season because the Scotties snapped that very long playoff drought. And then last year, back in the playoffs and getting the home game. It's not official yet, but awfully close to going back to the postseason once again. How important is that for this program to continue to make progress and to somewhat become now accustomed to making the postseason?
Yeah, I couldn't be prouder. The staff, we've all been together. for this is our 5th year, and this should be, if things, play out the way we think, the 3rd year in the playoffs out of 5, which gives them 4 total in the history of the school. So we've been here for 3 out of 4. And, I always tell people we're not everybody's homecoming game anymore, that, we play good football. And our kids are, they expect to win now. And we didn't have that when we first got here. So, that's a good feeling. Everybody expected this to be kind of an off year with the graduations that we had and, a new quarterback and a lot of unknowns. And, these guys have stepped up, especially our defense. They don't get a lot of credit, but they've had some great games, stopping some good players and some good teams. So the expectations, we have to get it to that next level, right? We got to start winning playoff games. And, I don't know if that's going to be this year. It could be, or it could be in the near future, but we have a lot of young football players out on that field. And I tell them all the time, you guys are going to win football playoff games. And I expect it. That's our expectations have to go up, all the time.
So everyone in Southmoreland gets geared up, I'm sure, for that matchup against Mount Pleasant area. That will conclude the regular season, but you have a very big test in front of you. You travel to play Belle Vernon, and it's a Leopards team that got off to, by their standards, kind of a slow start. But once conference play has begun, they have turned it on in a big, big way, blowing out everybody. So what challenges do the Leopards present to you? Well,
First of all, my son played for Matt Humbert. Matt does a great job. He's a good coach. He has a large staff. They're all, they've been together. He scheduled a really tough non-conference, obviously, where they lost a couple of games. But I think in the long run, it was a smart thing to do, knowing that, he was dropping down. And, as we've seen, his conference games have been blowouts. So he did a good job scheduling some tough games for those guys. Hey, look, I've been on that side. When I was at Clairton, I can't imagine what the other opponents thought when they watched our film. I watched their film, and there aren't many flaws. I mean, not only, obviously Quentin Martin, is a special player, but they got good kids everywhere, good team speed. Defensive line doesn't get credit for them. They're tough kids. Brett Barish is a very, very good defensive coordinator. So, it's a huge challenge for us. We're going to go down there and we have nothing to lose. I tell the kid, we're going to go down there and play our best. And, I want us to compete no matter who we play and never give up. So we're going to play every play as hard as we can and, try to compete with those guys. And, we know what we're up against.
Lastly, Tim, what makes Southmoreland the right place for you? What's so special about the Scotties in the community?
Well, I'll tell you, this is, the 5th high school I've coached at, and I've never been treated better. The community, is so supportive. They want a winner, and I think they believe in what we're doing. And, they know we're positive with the kids. And, the atmosphere here is really good on a Friday night. And, this is where I want to be. There were questions, always about me leaving or going to, be an OC somewhere else. But I'm here to win playoff games, and I won't be satisfied until we do. And, the school, Dan Boring, our AD, everybody just lets us coach and is real supportive. It's been a great situation.
Well, Tim, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. Once again, congratulations on getting off to this good start, and keep it up the rest of the way.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. Tim Bukowski, the head coach of Southmoreland. We'll take a break and continue with more right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
The Collision Shop by Jason Mignone is your one-stop shop for all things auto body repair. Our experienced technicians and state-of-the-art facilities have you covered on both passenger and heavy-duty vehicle repairs, including scratches, scrapes, and dents, free estimates, body repairs, welding, refinishing, glass replacement, and more. Our all-new alignment and calibration shop has the tooling, equipment, and staffing to ensure top-quality alignment and calibration adjustments for your vehicle. Our friendly office staff is more than happy to assist you through every step of your vehicle's repair process. Visit the Collision Shop by Jason for our complete list of services.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Sean and Dan, and we thank the head coach of Southmoreland, Tim Bukowski. You know, Flick, when he took over, it was kind of secondary because of the tragedy with Ron Frederick passing away. But I really enjoyed talking to him. We first met him when we went up to training camp. Really liked picking his brain there. Had a chance to interview him at our preseason show, and now talk to him once again. And, you know, he comes across very well. He's a smart guy. He obviously knows offense, but he's found a way to get the winning ingredients. And we gave so much credit to his predecessor and Dave Kiefer, but you have to give a lot of credit to Tim for the job he's done. And it almost guaranteed back to the playoffs for Southmoreland.
Oh, yeah, I agree. You know, and again, this is a Southmoreland team that certainly has had success recently, but historically it's that you know, history with, you know, not making the playoffs for 40 years and all those things. You know, the winning wasn't there. But, you know, Dave Kiefer did a great job of changing the culture. Coach Frederick would have continued to do that. And Tim was actually going to continue to coach with them, you know, regardless of what unfortunately happened. But, you know, he's one of those guys too, Sean, and many of the coaches that we work with are like this, but he understands that promoting the kids is very important. You know, when we went to training camp, one of those coaches that, you know, has no problem, you know, even during, you know, we try not to bother the coaches, but every once in a while, if we have a question, he had no problem coming over and explaining to us who this person was or what they were trying to do, what they were trying to accomplish, you know, and that type of thing. So when you have that open line of dialogue, it allows us to be able to promote the kids better. And we really appreciated that from him.
Yeah, and I think he was extra nice to me because he saw this Penn State blanket, and he's a Penn State fan. I think maybe his daughter went there, I believe. He probably realized that I'm in a bad spot after what happened against Michigan this past week. So he was extra nice, probably out of pity for me. So I appreciate that.
Penn State loses to Michigan. Seattle gets swept. The Mariners get swept. I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's at least my 49ers played well against the Falcons on Sunday, right?
There you go.
They lost. Anyway, well, that was the first of two interviews that we had with Southmoreland Scotties. We heard from the head man. And just a second from now, we're going to hear from their star receiver, Ty Keffer. And Flick, I don't know if I've ever seen a better stat line for a receiver. I'm very happy that he won this because it is certainly tremendously deserved.
Unreal. The Kiefer to Keffer connection was really hopping there. To catch 9 passes and 6 for touchdowns. That's again, something you never hear of. And not only that, but he had 2 interceptions as well on defense. So let's say he caught 11 passes, right? Just 2 happened to be from the other quarterback. Congratulations to him though. That was awesome. And heck, I almost considered having like a dual player of the week, but one nominee like Kiefer and Keffer. I could maybe interview them both at the same time because he obviously threw 6 touchdown passes. So just a great job by those guys. I mean, what else can you say? Historic, really. That's one that stat line we'll remember for a while. But I mentioned Owen Demiri earlier. He was a nominee this week, and he actually got, we had almost 2,000 votes this week, and Owen came up with 30% of the vote. Did a really nice job, certainly for Penn Trafford, rushed for almost 200 yards and the 2 touchdowns, as Sean, you mentioned earlier. Aiden Hudock, what more can you say about him? We already, mentioned his stats, but he plays such a huge role in every single game that Franklin Regional plays in just getting those quick strike touchdowns or turning momentum touchdowns. And I think that's what's been really big for him. Robbie Fulton, we had some really good performances this week. Robbie Fulton breaks the single season rushing record at Latrobe with 170 yards. And then, of course, Quentin Martin, 3 touchdowns, a receiving touchdown, or 3 rushing, a receiving, interception return for a touchdown. We had some huge performances this week, but Ty Keffer wins it out.
Yeah, and that's impressive because from my perspective, this was the best crop of nominees based on the performances they had all season long.
I would agree.
So if you win this one, you've done something right. And we always know the Scotties faithful, they stuffed the ballot box, if you will. It was a few years ago that we had 3 straight Scotties win the player voting. So we will hear from their standout receiver Ty Keffer. After this break, we'll continue, and then we'll run down the Week 8 preview as well as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Your next golf adventure awaits at Manor Valley Golf Course in Export. Manor Valley offers 18 scenic holes over gentle sloping fairways and the purest putting surfaces around. Manor Valley Golf Course in Export is the perfect place to host your next golf outing, banquet party, or shower. Manor Valley also offers league play and great membership rates. Tee times available. Call 724-744-4242. Visit ManorValleyGC.com.
Stadium lights are going out. The bleachers are empty. The reason? No officials. When fans are disrespectful to the calls on the field and those who make them, it is a hard position to fill. Show your support for your PIAA officials by demonstrating respect. Let's all work together so the game is great for everyone.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron as we roll along here on the Westmoreland Sports Network, and we roll right into our Week 7 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. He is Ty Keffer, part of that Kiefer-Keffer connection over at Southmoreland. The junior had a decent game. 9 catches, 160 yards, 6 touchdowns last week, and also intercepted 2 passes on defense in the Scotties victory over the Greensburg-Salem Golden Lions. I say you had 9 catches, Ty. I guess you actually had 11 because you caught 2 from the opposing quarterback. What a game for you, man. Thanks a lot for taking some time out here tonight to join us.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be out here.
Ty, let's jump right into it. You know, some receivers are happy to catch 6 touchdown passes in a single season, let alone a game. Have you been able to digest what you did and how big of a game that you and Caden had together?
No, till like since that happened, it's been incredible. It's like NFL stats. Like just it's incredible to have 6 thrown passes and catches just by like two players in one game.
Do you play fantasy football?
Nope.
Okay, well, if you did and you played high school fantasy football, so you made some people very happy this week. I don't know anyone that actually does play high school fantasy football, but wow, that would have been a ton of points.
I heard.
So I have to kind of put you on the spot a little bit here, Ty. Out of the 6 touchdowns, which one did you like the most? And can you take us through that play?
I liked the 3rd touchdown. I think we were down 15-21. It was like 47 seconds left in the second quarter. And we were on the goal line. It was like 3rd down. And so I was like talking to Caden. I was like, Caden, we got to score here. We got to get the tempo because we were going to get the ball in the second half. So we did a little trick play where they put me in motion and I scored, and that's the one I liked because they got all the kids, all the teammates hyped, and everyone in the crowd hyped before the second half.
Yeah, it's always important when you can score at the end of the first half and then get the ball. Did you guys end up putting it in the end zone then early in the second half or on the first drive or no?
No, we gave them the ball.
Okay. Well, hey, I mean, you still had that opportunity. So a little bit of a trick play there. That's a lot of fun. And you know, Tim Bukowski, your head coach, such a great offensive mind. What's it like playing for him and being able to, you know, put up a lot of points like you guys have had this year and, you know, run some trick plays and things like that?
Coach, I love Coach Tim. He believes in me. He believes in the team. So every time he thinks I can beat someone, he'll throw it up. He'll just for the whole team. Everyone loves him. He's just a guy to be around that everyone likes, and he can everyone trusts him.
Well, I almost nominated you and Caden as a tandem this week because, you know, he was throwing the touchdown passes to you. So talk a little bit about what kind of relationship you have with Caden Kiefer, your quarterback. You're both the same age, and kind of how that relationship helps you guys on the field.
Me and Caden have been best friends throughout high school. Like every time we see each other in high school, like in the halls, we give each other like a fist bump and everything. It's just like a trust thing. He trusts me, I trust him. Like in high school, you talk to them a lot. So like even about lunch and stuff, it's just like about trust. He throws it, I go and get it, and then it's just like that.
Well, then it makes a lot of sense that you guys have like the. I know you're young, but the Montana to Rice connection. I mean, you can throw the best quarterbacks and the best receivers out there. And you guys certainly have that, I guess, telepathy it would be, on the field. Win or lose, your offense has really put up a lot of points this year, with the exception of those losses to Deer Lakes and Elizabeth Forward, only 6 points in those 2 games total. However, since those 2 losses, you're able to put up 78 points in the last 2 games. So did anything change offensively? What kind of got you guys back on track, do you think?
When we lose, we don't pity about it. We don't take it personal. We get back on the field and we just keep working hard. No one cares about the losses. We just care about next week and next week and the next week after that. We just don't, pass it by.
Yep. Get it out of your memory. So you play on the defensive side of the ball as well. Again, I mentioned 2 interceptions last week. Were you happy with the way you guys played defensively against Greensburg-Salem, especially in that second half? It seemed like you guys buckled down.
Yes, always in the second half we do our best. Even the line had 3. I think it was 3 people. They showed up against their 5 or 6 or whatever it was. But we had some subs. We had some young kids in. We had Lewis Maines in for someone else. We have Caden Matthews. He's a freshman safety. Mm-hmm. So and they make plays. So when we need them to make plays, they'll make plays.
Well, and I mentioned, you're just a junior. Caden's only a junior. You just talked about some of the younger guys. And I know that you're in a good position to make the playoffs this year, but are you kind of looking at the bigger picture too, knowing that, hey, we have a chance to be really good next year too?
Yeah, we're probably going to be one of the best teams in the WPIL next year. We're not WPIL, but our section, because most people are losing their seniors, and that's what their team is. We're keeping everyone except for we're losing some O-line and some a running back. But other than that, our defense is going to be the same, and same with the offense.
Talking with Ty Keffer here, our Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week for Week 7. Ty, a really interesting story too, because you didn't play football last year. I believe the last time you played was in 6th grade. And so what brought you back out to play football here in 11th grade? And I'm sure you're very happy that you decided to come back out. But what made you decide to come back?
So one was Coach Fred. He was, after every basketball game, he came up to me and he tried to get me back in the game. I was like, no. And then every time he kept coming up, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll play. I'll try it out. And then I was out there. And the next part was my friends. They were like, Ty, just come play. Just try it out. If you like it, you can stay. So I was like, yeah, I'll try it out.
And the rest is history. That's for sure. You still have a bunch of games to go here in your career. So I did want to ask you, about Coach Fred. You just mentioned he was the guy that brought you back to football. And he was going to be your next head coach, and just so tragic that he passed away. How did the team kind of come together emotionally? I mean, did that make you an even closer team, trying to just kind of rally around one another?
Yeah. So even after he passed away, everyone was so emotional, and everyone just started lifting each other up, saying, well, they'll just do it this season for him. And as you can see, they are. But even in the locker room, when the pregame speech, we make sure to talk about Coach Fred all the time. And we even put this thing up. So when we go out of the locker room, we slap, it's a quote with his picture on it. Wow. We slap that just for him.
Oh my goodness. That gives me chills just hearing that. And I'm sure it gives you guys chills every time, you go out onto the field. So I asked you kind of what got you back into football, I guess. What are some of the things you like best about playing the sport now that you're back into it?
Oh, just everything about it. The team, the catches, I'd say highlights, but I don't want to be too cocky. I don't want to go that, but it's just great. The team's amazing. The team's great.
Yeah, I know you just want to win, but when you catch 6 touchdown passes, it's not a bad thing to go back in a huddle or whatever and look back.
Yeah,
look back, and there's nothing wrong with that. I know you're a 3-sport athlete. You also play hoops, as you mentioned. You also play baseball. What are some of the things you like to do when you're less busy, I guess? I see you're in your gaming chair there. I know you like to do that a little bit, right?
Yeah. So when I'm not doing a sport, basically I'm not doing anything. When I have football or something, I come home and just go out and shoot basketball in the back. When I'm not doing a sport, I just lay in my bed basically. When I'm doing baseball, I get home, I go shoot basketball. It's just sport after sport.
Just never stops. And that's awesome because I feel like there are less and less kids that play multiple sports, and that's great that you continue to do that. Now, I know you've kind of splashed onto the scene football wise, and you still certainly have some time left, but would you like to play a sport in college, and are you leaning towards any of them specifically?
No, it's just, I guess, whatever goes better.
Mm-hmm.
Basketball, I'm not really leaning towards baseball because it's just like a fill-in sport. So I stay athletic, but basketball and football are definitely where it's at.
One final thing for you, Ty. I mean, you guys are in a really good spot right now in the conference in terms of, being in a playoff spot. What do you guys have to do well? I mean, you're obviously facing a really, really good team in Bell Vernon this week. What do you have to do to pull an upset?
I'd say it stops Quentin Martin. He's an athlete.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard, but I think during this game, like where we sit with them will determine how like the playoffs go. Because they're a good team. Of course, they're a good team, but they have some other athletes that are like under the shadows. So we just got to go out there and try our hardest. Like I said before, if we win or lose, just pass it behind your head.
Do you personally get excited to play against a kid like that and Quentin Martin, who's a Division I athlete?
Yeah, because I think he's going to be on me. So it's just going to be a fun time.
Seriously, man, enjoy it. I mean, those are times you'll remember years down the road. Like, maybe when Quentin, who knows? Maybe he'll be in the NFL someday. You never know. That's something you'll never forget, win or lose. So
it'll be fun. I hope I make some plays. I mean, I could, and
absolutely.
He could. So.
Hey, you got to have that confidence, man. Go out there and leave it all on the field for sure.
Exactly.
For sure. Ty, thank you so much. This was great. And hey, you're only a junior. Hopefully we get to talk again soon.
Yes.
All right. That is Ty Keffer. Thank you, buddy. That is Ty Keffer from the Southmoreland Scotties, our Week 7 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. We will be back to preview Week 8 games right after these messages on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Right now at Smale Kia, take $500 off any in-stock or incoming 2023 Kia Soul or Forte, or lease a 2023 Kia Forte LXS for just $295 a month. A fair price all the time. At Smale Kia, you never have to worry about the ugly three. No sly market adjustments, no creepy addendum, no fancy surcharges. Avoid the ugly three and be free. Shop Smale Kia, where you never pay more than MSRP.
Stay up to date on the latest happenings in Westmoreland County sports in our Westmoreland Sports Notebook every Monday on westmorelandsports.com. We take a look back at the week that was in Westmoreland County sports with any news you may have missed during the week, like updates for high school football, soccer, and volleyball, area coaching changes, individual accomplishments, and so much more. Grab some coffee and start your week with our Westmoreland Sports Notebook every Monday this fall on westmorelandsports.com. And welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We appreciate Ty Keffer of Southmoreland on this Scotties heavy show for taking the time to talk to our Dan Flickinger. We always appreciate talking Southmoreland football. And I don't think he was probably around at the time, but man, my experience, Southmoreland football, that game against McGuffey, that's still, I think, number one for me, Flick. It's going to take a lot to top that.
I'm actually wearing a kilt, by the way. You can't see it, but it's
probably for the best.
It's there. I'm not standing up. Nobody wants to see it, but it's there.
So it's our final segment, which means we're going to run down all of the Week 8 games in Westmoreland County. And we've got a lot of big ones to get to. But we would be remiss. We went through plays of the week, and we talked about all these great plays across Westmoreland County. And yet there was one play that everyone's been talking about, not just in Western Pennsylvania, but really across the entire country. It did not involve a Westmoreland County team, but the Pittsburgh Central Catholic and Penn Hills ending, we have to talk about because this was one of the most unbelievable endings ever. And for those who haven't seen it, we'll take a look at it here.
Yeah.
Central Catholic was trying for a field goal in the last play of the game. Penn Hills blocked it. The Indians celebrated. Players were coming out on the field. Game over, right? Indians win. People, even in the press box, were seemingly thought this one was over. Except for one of the linemen for Central Catholic realized, you know what? This is a live ball. And so he picks it up, takes it to the house with really no one else on the field, or at least no Penn Hills players thinking anything of it. He gets into the end zone, and after a brief delay, they say, that's a good touchdown. Now, if you're on the Penn Hill side, you're probably not happy because the refs, some of them seemingly were walking away. Who knows? If there wasn't a whistle blown, then really it's kind of hard to say that it shouldn't count, but mass confusion, and yet the heads-up player ultimately gets Central Catholic the victory. So that's just an incredible ending, and one that if you're on either side of, you're going to remember for the rest of your life.
I mean, it's gotten national attention. I mean, if you Google it right now, it'll come out. Like, I think I read an article on CBS Sports that was talking about it. There was another play actually, Sean, that happened, and I'm kind of going off here now, but I don't remember where. Well, maybe it'd been in Texas or something like that. I don't know if people know this, but there's a rule in high school football where if you call for, actually it's NFL too, I think, but if you call for a fair catch, the very next play, you're allowed to kick a field goal with a tee. You're allowed to kick it off of a tee, and a team won because of that. Again, this was in another state, but that's another play. But there's all kind of crazy things going on this weekend. But you wonder if the Central Catholic player immediately knew that he could return that, or he thought, maybe I'll try it, and just kind of picked it up. Either way, it was a heads up play. And it's interesting because I think things like, I think the reason you never see that is because usually when you get a block, the ball is bouncing way behind the line of scrimmage, and both teams are going for it then. And then, someone gets tackled, or maybe the team that blocked it, jumps on it, even though at that point it doesn't necessarily matter. So you don't really see an opportunity for an offensive player to pick it up and go the other way and then go for a touchdown. But I think it was just because it was blocked and it was just kind of sitting there at the line of scrimmage, and people were celebrating that's why that happened. But I know it's something that everybody will certainly remember going forward. Can you imagine? Now, that was a non-conference game, so it doesn't mean anything really, although you work so hard during the game, you want to win it.
Right. And those are two great teams.
Yeah, so it means something to the kids. I'm not saying, but in the long run. But could you imagine if that happened in a playoff game or a Whitfield championship game or state champ? I mean,
well, funny you say that. And
that happened at Heinz Field, right?
Yeah,
right?
I don't remember this, even though I might have been down there at the time. I believe this actually happened with Central Catholic against Woodland Hills in maybe 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
So it's not the first. Now, it's not like any of those players on the field that night probably remembered that, but it's kind of crazy that it's happened twice with Pittsburgh Central Catholic. So a lesson for everyone who plays football or coaches football. If you don't know 100%, might as well at least try and finish the play and force the officials to say, no, that doesn't count.
Yeah, and coaches preach that, right? I mean, they do. And that's why you see, NFL players all the time, they'll pick up the ball and run into the end zone, and you're watching it on TV. You're like, come on, that wasn't but hey, I mean, that's what they preach. You do it every time, and maybe 1 out of 100, they'll keep the play going and say it's a touchdown. Everybody will be shocked. So,
yeah. Well, and the other thing is at the high school level, they're not going to be able to reverse things by looking at instant replay.
Right. Yep.
So
and there was some angles people had out there that said that the ball didn't cross the line of scrimmage. It was still on the defensive side, but
yeah. All right. Well, anyway, let's get to the matter at hand, which is all of the Week 8 games across Westmoreland County. We're going to have many of them here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. And again, you're to the point of the season where the vast majority of these games will have playoff implications in some way, shape, or form. We begin with the games we're broadcasting. Norwin at Gateway, as the Knights, well, they're having a rough go of it this season. They'll go against a Gators team that is absolutely rolling in recent weeks. This is a big one. Hempfield area hits the road to play the Plum Mustangs. Spartans have sputtered, losers of 3 straight. They still are alive, but they will have to win out. That has to begin at Plum. And Flick, I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I was pretty impressed by the Mustangs. I thought defensively, they really hung in there. Cade Thomas had a spectacular pick 6 early in that game, and then he had a nice touchdown late. This is a team that's going to be really good next year, but they're good enough this year to beat some teams, including Hempfield area. So I think that's going to be a real test for the Spartans to try to right that ship on the road.
Yeah, I agree with that. And they're playing with some confidence. I mean, going into Penn Trafford, as we watched the game last week, obviously Plum got that pick 6, but that was after Penn Trafford kind of moved the ball. And I thought even though that Plum went up 7-0, I kind of thought that Penn Trafford, I don't know, was going to control the game. And I think that they did. But saying that, Plum never went away. I mean, they stayed, they didn't allow Penn Trafford to really pull away from them. And I think they have some really good players. And again, like you said, next year, I mean, they're going to have a lot of those players coming back. So it'll be really interesting to see how they do next year. But this will be a really tough game for Hempfield on the road.
A all Westmoreland County battle will be on the Westmoreland Sports Network as the Borough Buccaneers will play at Derry area. The Trojans looking to get off the schneid. They are 0 here in 2022. It's a big one for Jeanette. The Jayhawks at home have a chance to clinch a playoff spot as they welcome the Springdale Dynamos. And this is a Springdale team that has really struggled. Jeanette will be favored. That's a game that Jeanette has to win, certainly, because the Jayhawks play against the Clairton Bears to conclude the season. Dynamos, as good as they've been in some recent years, they are coming off of a loss against Fraser, which snapped the longest active losing streak in the WPIAL. Do you know who currently holds that mark?
I'm afraid to ask. Who would it be?
The Derry area Trojans.
No, I said I'm afraid to ask. Oh, man.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I believe it would have been Brownsville, except they technically left the WPIAL.
It's Brownsville. Come on.
Okay. Well, according to former Derry area athletes, it is Brownsville, but others would say it's the Trojans. Anyway, Springdale, they've had a rough go of it here this season. Franklin Regional at North Hills, Penn Trafford at North Allegheny. We will have both those broadcasts, as you mentioned, Flick, a couple of non-conference matchups in the 5A Big East Conference there. McKeesport at Greater Latrobe. Wildcats, for all intents and purposes, in the postseason, but we'll see how they go against one of the very best teams in the entire WPIAL. This McKeesport team, so impressive. They're coming off of a win against Gateway last week.
I will say, Sean, Latrobe has competed with some really good teams this year.
Yeah, they hung in there with Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, they only lost by 10, so who knows?
McKeesport might be at a higher level than TJ
probably
even,
at this point, yeah.
Yeah, Bobby Boyd, he might be the best player I've seen all season. Elizabeth Forward at Greensburg-Salem, as the Warriors have been absolutely outstanding. Again, it looks like it will be a collision course for the final week of the regular season between EF and Bell Vernon area. Speaking of the Leopards, they host Southmoreland, and South Allegheny will be at Mount Pleasant area. That's a must-win game for the Vikings against a sputtering South Allegheny team, which, by the way, lost their head coach recently. Darwin Mangis stepped down due to health concerns for the Gladiators. So that's a tough break for South Allegheny. Freeport area will be at Valley. Ligonier Valley at Amani Christian. That's a tough place to play against a pretty talented Saints squad. Yawk at Steel Valley, talking about tough places to play. The Ironmen, maybe the most impressive team in all of 2A this season. Although the Cougars have hung tough the last couple of weeks against some pretty good teams. Monessen at Mapletown. That is a first place showdown in the Tri-County South. The Greyhounds have had a great season. And then non-conference Fox Chapel at Kiski area. Greensburg Central Catholic will play under the natural light of the sun, a Saturday noon game at Riverview and Riverside Park, right in my territory. And then the couple of college games on Saturday. Seton Hill at IUP will make the trek up to Flick's old stomping grounds in Indiana. That will be a 2:00 kickoff, and we'll have the video broadcast to that one. And St. Vincent at Allegheny Saturday at 1. So, Flick, I mean, we kind of ran down them quickly because we talked a lot earlier in the show, but some big matchups and an opportunity for many of these teams to either clinch their spot or solidify their playoff standing, certainly here in week 8.
No doubt about it. And as we mentioned earlier, a number of teams, on the bubble. I don't know that Southmoreland's necessarily on the bubble, but they still need to get some work done to get into the playoffs. Burrell, one of those teams that, needs to do that as well. There's some others like Latrobe that, again, 99.9% chance that they're in. Penn Trafford needs to do some work and get some help too. So great. Do you watch NFL Red Zone, Sean, at all?
Oh, I love it. Scott Hansen's the best.
They have the witching hour, right?
Yes, that's 3:00.
That's kind of where we're at right now, right? With even though, again, there's non-conference games this week. But, for these teams, we got the witching hour is upon us.
Oh, I thought you were doing the Penn Trafford's band performance of The Undertaker.
Oh, no, but that's number one, baby.
Well,
you performed it twice last week. I don't know why, but
you're
cool.
going to get to see it firsthand this week. Huh? You're going to be back in the saddle, rumor has it.
I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I definitely have to watch some videos on how to do play-by-play because, geez, the last football game I did, I think, was the Penn Trafford State Championship play-by-play, I want to say. So,
well, I guess
not about me, but Roger will.
Good luck charm then, right?
Yeah, that's right. If I screw up, Roger's there, and I'll just let him do it. So he's done more broadcasts than I have lately, that's for sure. So,
yep,
we'll see how it goes.
And again, Friday nights, Saturday afternoons, we want you tuning into our broadcast, audio and video, and yet the content is 7 days a week and 365 days a year when it comes to Westmoreland sports. We got great stuff all week long. So that's something that, of course, everyone, when they're not watching the broadcast, not watching a show like this, they need to check out our website and see all the good stuff we got on there.
And we're always working on things, Sean. We're right now working on perhaps broadcasting the entire state tournament for Senior Legion that's going to be held in Latrobe, Teener League. We're already talking about that right now with Jason Bush. So
I was going to say, what is that, like next July?
I mean, yeah. So we're almost a full year away from that, but we're already talking about it. So things never slow down.
Absolutely. And again, Monday, Westmoreland County Sports Notebook. Tuesday, the Westmoreland Alum Q&A. We have the recruiting every Thursday. Yes. Recruiting Thursday, as it's called, is on Thursdays. And then Friday, we have the preview of all of the high school football games across Westmoreland County. And then Friday night, after the games all wrap up, Friday Night Lights. So we've got plenty to meet your football needs in every other sport, fall, winter, spring, and even into the summer. Well, that'll do it for another edition of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. We're starting to near the end of the regular season, but each and every Wednesday at 7 p.m., this is where you need to be to hear all the best in Westmoreland County football talk. We'd like to thank our special guests tonight, Tim Bukowski and Ty Keffer, a couple of Southmoreland Scotties, the head coach and the receiver. But for now, signing off, Sean Meyers, Dan Flickinger. We'll catch you again next Wednesday. You know where to stop in, 7 p.m. right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. It's Westmoreland on the Gridiron.